So I thought I'd stop for a second and talk a little bit about how I'm going to finish this guitar. Um, there are a lot of aspects that actually make this an easier finish because the very nature of the guitar itself is that it is an old antique beer crate, and it's got a lot of flaws and a lot of scratches and chips and all kinds of things. It's dirty. So on the one hand, all these any scratches from sanding are not a big deal, and like all these sort of things, like where I put in filler, or right here where it didn't join perfectly, and I filled it with sawdust and super glue. It's not a big deal. It fits the aesthetic of the guitar. I mean, obviously, I don't want it to look like a craft project, but I think it does fit, so that's not a problem. From that angle, it's easy. The bigger problem is that what I don't want to do is change the look of the top. And so on the one hand, I've thought about just leaving it as it is and not putting any finish on it. Of course, if I were to do that, the downside is that this is a really old crate and I don't know how it will wear. So it could be one show that I perform with this guitar and the sweat just wears everything off and it looks like a piece of wood instead of a cool beer crate. And I don't want that. I want this to be something that lasts. I want to preserve the oldness of it, if that makes any sense. I want it to look as it does right now for eternity. I have no problem with guitars aging. My primary Fender Stratocaster that I use to gig with it looks like it's 100 years old, and it really isn't. It's a parts caster, if you will. And that's just from playing it a lot. It has a nitro finish on it, and the lacquer has just worn off over time. In this case, I want it to look just like this. I want to preserve the 100-year-old antique, or however, I don't know how old it is. I want to preserve the antique, the genuine antique part of this. I don't want to add anything to it. So, I've debated on what to do, and I have a couple options. So, I've looked at, my first thought was to use this Mohawk Easy vinyl sealer. This is a sealer that I typically put on before I put on nitrocellulose lacquer. It just seals the wood. It's just like it sounds. I tried it with some different experiments, and it looks like nothing. So that's good. That's the good side of it. The downside of it is I don't know how durable the vinyl sealer is, and I don't know if it provides any UV protection or anything like that. I then bought this Krylon matte finish. This is something you might use if you're working with, for example, chalk pastels or ebony pencils or something like that, and you're drawing. You would spray this on top, and it provides a moisture barrier. It seals everything in. The nice thing about this is that it is waterproof, and all the dirt that's kind of embedded into this is kind of, I'm thinking it would kind of function like it would with the chalk pastel, and that it will just seal it all in there. I don't have to clean the top, which I don't want to do. I don't want to clean the dirt off. I want to leave it. So I'm leaning toward that. The downside is that I don't know if it's really meant for long-term abuse and use. So I don't know how resistant it would be to, for example, things like sweat when I'm playing, or just things like that. So I was thinking it'd be nice if I had something a little bit heavier duty. So I checked out this. I bought this Watco, or however you spell it, crystal clear lacquer. I think this would probably be the most durable of all the finishes. It's satin, and it was actually kind of expensive. The downside is when I did a test, so this piece of wood has various tests on it with the Krylon matte finish and the Mohawk Easy vinyl sealer. And if you can see any differences in the color of wood, that was there beforehand. So you really can't see either of those. just a clear protective sealant. However, when I use these crystal clear lacquer, you can, I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, but you can definitely see that it darkens everything. So this side is much darker than this side. And I don't want that. So, what do? The winner is going to be the Krylon. I don't know if it's going to be the most durable. We're just going to do it. That's the final choice. Now the last thing I've thought about is, what am I going to do for the back? And again, I want to leave it natural. I initially thought I might paint it black, but I think I really like the clear, natural look of it. And I thought about just spraying the whole thing with the clear lacquer or the clear finish. I've decided I'm going to use, let's see if you can see it, True Oil. So the plan is to mask off the back of the guitar, spray the top with the matte finish. Once I've got a couple coats on there and I feel good about it, I'll unmask it. Then I'm going to mask the top, and then I'll use the True Oil to fix the back. So that's the plan. Who knows if it'll turn out like I want it to. My only concern is that the True Oil has a tendency to darken wood, and I really like the contrast between it's not out here, the walnut neck, the walnut cavity cover, and the light wood. So I don't know about that. We'll see. We're just going to play with it. Alright, so I put on 4 coats of the Krylon clear protectant, and I don't think it noticeably changed the color at all. So I'm pretty happy. It may be slightly darker, but it's not the end of the world. In fact, I kind of like it because then it gives me this nice contrast between that and the ash. And I did a quick experiment with the True Oil here on the end of the ash, just to see what it would do. And it really doesn't darken it too much. So I'm pretty happy. I think it's gonna give me a nice contrast, particularly with the walnut. For example, here's the cavity cover. Over here, I'll put some vinyl sealer on it before I lacquer it. And I think it's gonna be nice. I'm pretty happy about that. The other nice thing is that using that sealer that I did, that Krylon, places like this where there's this decal or something, it's kind of sealed it in there now. It looks like it's still easily peeled up, but it's actually, I don't even know if I can get a fingernail under there now, even though it looks like you can. It's pretty protected, so I'm pretty happy about that. I thought I was going to do clear, but I didn't like it. So I've stained it this really, really dark walnut. And I like it, but I think it needs, you can't really tell here, it just looks flat and not finished. So I have already tried True Oil, and the True Oil was okay, but I just don't love it. So I'm kind of left with just a few options. One of them is to sand it off. Don't really want to do that. I'm okay with the dark color, and I think it's a nice contrast. Or I can have another option, which is shellac. So I'm going to try shellacking it. I've never used shellac on a guitar before. I've done it on some ham planes that I've restored, and I really like the way it looks. It gives it a nice sheen, but not like a lacquer, like a clear lacquer. So I've masked off the top. It was a 2-stage process, a complete pain. You'll see I have green tape underneath. That's the tape that's actually contacting the guitar. because it's less likely to pull any of the finish off that I've already put on the top. And then I've taped, you can't see it in this picture. Well, I suppose I could just lift it. I've taped off the top, as you can see. So I am going to, oh, you'll also notice that I've taped all the cavity holes, and that's solely because I don't want any of the shellac to overspray in underneath the masking that I've done and get to the top. So next step is shellacking. I mean, I guess if it doesn't work, I can always sand it off. But shellac's nice because I can put it right on top of the true oil and there won't be any problems. Shellac's is sort of one of those universal, I don't know what you would call it, like it's not a universal solvent, but it's a universal finish that you can paint over, you can lacquer over, you can do all kinds of things over. So I've already level sanded, well, I've already sanded a little bit on the back so it doesn't look as nice as it would otherwise. I'm really just using a piece of 400 grit sandpaper to lightly sand. The last thing I want to do is, I'm not trying to level sand this. I really want to retain the grain. I just want to feel nice everywhere. I just want to, there's some spots where it's just, the grain is raised a little bit, or it's just not smooth. So I just want to ever so slightly smooth it off so it feels nice. And then I'm going to give another coat. I thought in the meantime I'd show, here's the walnut cavity cover. I'm really digging the contrast. So I'm really happy I went with the dark. And I'm excited when I put the walnut neck on that I'll actually have the contrast between the walnut neck and the body. So I'm looking forward to that. So anyways, this is basically done. I'm debating whether I want to level sand and buff it. Probably not. Probably leave it as is to kind of fit with the overall theme. But I'm just going to go around and continue to just lightly, I mean really lightly sand with this 400 grit around the edge, and then I will give it another spray. Well, I thought I'd show what's going on here. This guitar has fought me every step of the way here at the end. And I'm not proud of some of the stuff that's happened, but this is definitely not going to be my cleanest, most pristine build, but I guess that's fine given the style of the guitar. But anyways, what you see here, I'm gluing in a shim. And essentially, I think what's going on is that this body blank, because it's an antique piece of wood, it's not perfectly level everywhere. I don't know if you can see the little lips and the gaps and it is what it is. But what that means is that when I put the template on to route the neck pocket, I don't think it was as tight as typical. I think the template got a little wonky and I had to do some adjustments, and in the process of doing that, we end up with a neck pocket that's a little bit larger than it needs to be. So what that means is that I ended up with a gap. But it also means that I had other issues, such as the neck was just too high. So then I rerouted the neck pocket, which means that this gap got a little bit bigger because you can never get it perfectly aligned. But it also means that in the process of doing that, I routed the neck pocket too shallow or too deep. So I'm using one of these nice Dumax shims. And if you've noticed, I've stained the edge because you could see the maple underneath the neck. Actually, once I've stained it now, once I put it in there with the stain, you can't even tell it's there. So that's nice. The plan now is to go in here. I'm gluing this shim in. So once that's cured, I'm gonna trim it flush, and then I'm gonna stain this part with a sort of a, I don't know, like a light walnut color. And then down here, I'm gonna stain it with a dark walnut or ebony color. And hopefully, once that's done, it won't really stand out. That's the plan anyways. Other than that, it's done. Strung it up, everything's fine. Other than that, that's pretty much done. So, crossing my fingers that everything works out here.